Dynamite drummer, award-winning film composer and all-round musical great, Antonio Sanchez is one of the brightest stars in modern drumming. Keep watching to find out why. Antonio Sanchez's career began when he moved from Mexico City to the States and studied at Berklee College of Music. Attending one of the best music colleges in the world allowed him to hone his craft and take his first steps into playing professionally. One of his first jobs was as drummer for Panamanian musician Danilo Perez. It was during his time playing with Perez that he caught the eye of legendary jazz guitarist Pat Metheny, who would later go on to recruit Sanchez to be in his group. His exploits with Metheny helped establish him as one of the prime drummers in the world, and he began releasing albums as band leader. As his reputation continued to grow, he was recruited by Alejandro González Iñárritu to compose the soundtrack for the award-winning film Birdman. Fast forward to today, and Antonio Sanchez is a Grammy-winning artist who's released 9 solo albums and worked with a varied and glowing list of musicians, including Chick Corea, John Scofield, Michael Brecker, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and more. One thing we can immediately establish is that Sanchez is an insanely gifted drummer. His technique, control of the kit, limb independence, rhythm, stylistic versatility, and overall philosophy are wildly impressive. In this interview, he outlines how dabbling in different styles of music enabled him to broaden his horizons stylistically and expand his technical canvas as a drummer.
I'm as influenced by Chick Corea as I'm by Mozart and the Macarena. So of course you end up making the best out of your influences, but we should embrace everything that we are, and that eventually will become into our own voices.
But instead of focusing on analysis of his technique, I want to take a closer look at how he implements his technique, with particular emphasis on what he discusses in this interview.
Because a lot of times people have the impression that drums is this monochromatic instrument that is in the back and you're just kind of following the beat for everybody to do their stuff on top of what you're doing. A lot of my teachings are about, being a melodic and a musical drummer, which a lot of people are not. So I usually start my clinics asking how many drummers in the house, and 90% of the people raise their hand. And then my second question is like, how many musicians in the house? And they're like, they don't know if they should raise their hand or not. And I was like, okay, that should be the first lesson. As a drummer, you're always a musician. You should be a musician.
Approaching the drum kit as a melodic instrument rather than a rhythmic one, and everything that mindset entails, is one of the most fascinating tenets of Sanchez's philosophy. You can hear it in his playing through the personality and esoteric nature of his solos. They're distinctly Antonio Sanchez solos, very different to everyone else's because his approach to phrasing, motifs and chops is so unique. Once armed with a wide array of technical chops and different styles, you have a huge scope to perform intricate and innovative pieces of music on the kit. You put all that together and you get playing that is nuanced, idiosyncratic and very impressive, like his solo on the track Bad Hombres y Mujeres from his 8th album. Beyond just technical flexibility, familiarizing himself with new and different kinds of music enabled him to not only take steps into composing, but to do so with a hunger to experiment conceptually and formally. The album 3x3 is a golden example of this.
This other project is called 3x3, and the record company that I've been with for a few years called Camp Jazz. Would you like to do an all-star project? Every time I hear all-star, I'm like, ugh, I don't know about that, because I've heard so many all-star bands and so many records that sound so bad. Maybe if I do small combos with musicians that I haven't gotten the chance to play with much. Maybe if they're small combos, we could make this really cool. So my idea was to write specifically for this project. So the idea was to start to do basically some of the most representative trio settings out there, which is piano trio, guitar trio, and saxophone trio, and start with a very structured piano trio, then a little less structured guitar trio, and a completely, loose and completely, spur of the moment saxophone trio. So I wrote music specifically having Brad Meldau and Matt Brewer in mind, with Schofield and Christian in mind, and Lovano and Patitucci in mind. And it brought so many different aspects of my writing out that I would never play with my band, because in my band, I don't have guitar to begin with.
This album is comprised of 9 tracks, with 3 tracks being written for a different trio of musicians. Antonio Sanchez is on drums for all 3, then in the first trio you have Brad Meldau on keys and Matt Brewer on bass, then John Schofield on guitar and Christian McBlade on bass in the second trio, and finally Joe Lovano on sax and John Patitucci on bass on the third trio. It's fascinating to hear the nuances of Sanchez's compositional choices, which are tailored to the styles of the players in each trio. One of the highlights of his career is his work as composer for the Oscar-winning film Birdman. Sanchez has recounted how surprised he was to receive the proposition to score a mainstream film soundtrack with largely just drums, an instrument that has rarely been used, if ever, to score a film, given it doesn't have the melodic dynamism to add to a scene in the same way an orchestra or a synth can, for instance. But it's this exact aspect of Sanchez's playing that made him such a great fit as a composer. The drum soundtrack for Birdman is rich and nuanced, worthy of hours of analysis of how music and visuals interact.
So I read the script and he told me to send him some ideas, and I did, but what I sent him was very thought out. I thought, okay, every time Regan Thompson comes on the screen, you'll hear this little rhythmic theme, and he wanted a comedic theme. And then I started sending them to him, and he wrote me an email saying, thanks, the demos are great, but it's exactly the opposite of what I'm looking for. I'm like, so tell me what are you looking for? And he said, I want something a lot more jazzy, more visceral, spur of the moment, improvised. When he said that, I kind of relaxed. I was like, okay, so all I have to do is do what I do on stage, which is react to my surroundings. So this time around, I just have to react to a film. And he would explain each scene of the script to me in great detail. And then he would have me play it. Just improvise something with that idea. And, in a million years, I would have thought that just drums would work with a movie like that. To me, it's just genius, what he did.
If we take a look at this brief scene, you can tell how the drums punctuate the on-screen action with motifs and rhythm, giving it a sonic pulse that moves it along seamlessly with the long camera takes.
So, who are you?
Sam, my daughter.
Oh. Your daughter? Wow, that's amazing. You don't look anything like each other. What do you do?
She's my assistant. Works for me.
And does she talk and speak?
She does. Yeah. She can even sit or stay or roll over if you have any treats.
Antonio Sanchez is a wonderfully unique, technical and fascinating drummer. Whether it's playing Latin, fusion, composing for a trio or for a Hollywood film, he's demonstrated his superlative ability as a musician, and I've always got my eye on what he does next. Thanks for checking out the video. Please let me know down below what your thoughts are on Antonio Sanchez, if you're familiar with him or if you've just discovered him. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers.